Good morning, everybody. I'm very honored to present today on your conference, and I'm Marie-José Enders-Slegers. I'm the president of International Association of Human-Animal Interaction Organizations, and I'm a professor in anthropology at the Open University of Heerlen in the Netherlands, and working in the faculty of psychology. I want to talk with you today about meeting the standards in animal-assisted interventions. I want to talk with you about the need for science to work together with practice and with government for a sustainable future. First of all, I want to introduce my organization to you and tell something about the goals and the missions. And I want to express the multidisciplinarity of our field and all the difficulties this brings for us when we are talking. Are we talking the same language? Are we using the same definitions? I want to talk with you more about the sustainability of the field. In Europe, I'm living in the Netherlands, it is not yet a sustainable field, and it is very difficult to get remunerated, just to get money for the work you are doing when you are working in this field. And there is a need for accreditation. I will tell you more about it. There is a need of very well educational pathways, guidelines, quality standards, protocols. So our work is done in a proper way, and we need to safeguard human and animal well-being. We need to collaborate with practitioners and with scientists to get to know the best practices, the best results of our work. We need to collaborate with the governments, insurance companies, health institutions, educational institutes, and to organize our fields. I will tell you more about all those things that are necessary to stay alive. Our organization, the IAHIO International Association of Human-Animal Organizations, exists already a long time. It's all about human-animal bond and human-animal interactions. It is an organization of organizations, not of individuals. We have a board of trustees, and we all work as volunteers, and we have a director. And we have more than 100 member organizations globally, which comprises many, many, many individuals who are involved in one of our member organizations. We have guidelines about education, about training, conferences. We want to function as a knowledge hub. We have declarations, for instance, on animal abuse and domestic violence, about the right to have a pet. We have a white paper. I'll talk about that later as well. And we have task forces in which we work with experts and with our membership about guidelines, about best practices, welfare in animal-assisted interventions. We provide free webinars and have a lovely journal, People and Animals International Journal, in which we invite you to publish. We give out grants, and what we think is very, very important is a collaboration between all the membership and the people who wants to be a member of our organization. Together with the membership and together with other experts, we were able to establish a task force about a white paper. And the white paper is very explicit explicit about all the definitions that we are using and about animal welfare, and not to jeopardize it. We established webinars. We have every couple of months, we have free webinars. We have international guidelines on care, training, welfare requirements, and they are very recent, and they are all on our website. We have a welfare on equine assisted therapy, on small animals, and also on farm animals in animal assisted interventions. Guidelines for education, and we have recently put up an international consortium terminology, because terminology and definitions is a very difficult topic to find consensus about, and we are trying to get that done. So using the same language all over the globe is, of course, very important. And we are working with different groups of clients. We have different goals that we want to establish. We have many, many animals we are working with. We have psychologists, physiotherapists, speech therapists, we have occupational therapists, we have psychiatrists. All kinds of disciplines are working in our field, and they have their own professional language. And it is very difficult, it might be very difficult for other disciplines to use all the same language when we are talking about animal-assisted interventions. Moreover, there are many volunteers involved. There are many different cultures involved, and different cultures means also different standards and sometimes also different ethical principles. And we have different legal regulations and ethics. So what is normal in a certain area, maybe not at all legal or in another area. So we have a lot of things to work with and to think over and to organize, to do it in a proper way, our job. When you are looking at the definitions, you can see that there has been already done a lot of work about definitions. We are working already many, many years in finding the right terminology to express what we are doing. And we have been discussing that for a long time. And one of the outcomes was that we would use animal-assisted interventions as an umbrella term, and which was divided in, for instance, in animal-assisted therapy, animal-assisted education, animal-assisted coaching or counseling, and animal-assisted activities. However, there is still unclarity about definitions, and some people want to have it more explicit. For instance, animal-assisted occupational therapy, animal-assisted psychotherapy, etc. So we are still working on, and maybe we'll have to adjust our white paper on definitions later in time. There are, of course, standards and terminology also by, for instance, AAII, Animal Assisted Interventions International. They wrote it down I'll show you later on in the lecture, this, how do you call it? Guidelines. And of course, I want to point out to the IAHI white paper, which has been adjusted in 2018, but probably will be adjusted later on. And the wonderful thing of the IAHI white paper, which is very, very helpful in our work, and in our communication with other countries and with other disciplines is that it is in many, many languages. It has been translated also in Spanish, so please have a look. They are, of course, very important because when we don't use the same language, we can talk about it with our colleagues, but different things are meant by our wording. And that is, it should be standardized when we want to do good and sound research. And we need to have standardized terminology when we want to share best practices, etc. And in studies, in the studies that have been done so far, it is not very clear what is meant. People use AAI, animal-assisted interventions, while, for instance, animal-assisted therapy by a therapist is meant instead of animal-assisted activity, because that is given by, can also be a professional who is giving an activity, but sometimes it will be a volunteer. And only when it is a therapist who's giving the intervention, we can call it animal-assisted therapy. So it's very, very important that we know what is meant by the intervention, how it is done, who is doing it. And of course, in the research that has been done so far, there were often weak designs and insufficient information about the protocols, how people did executed the intervention. So that is really what is it? Something that hinders the development of our field when we don't know, or to express ourselves in a way that everybody knows exactly what we are doing. And new terms continue to be created, and that is really not a good thing. We should work together to find definitions that we all can embrace. So that's one of the things we want to work on. Wording is so very important, so because to replicate the studies, we cannot do it without using the same wording altogether. There should be also clarity about theoretical foundations that are used. There should be clearly identified objectives. Goals are needed to be expressed in all the work that is referenced. Clearly defined interventions with the animal are necessary, so that it is very well written down how the intervention is carried out. And so university professors and students and people that are reviewing literature of colleagues, they should ask for very explicit wording, for very explicit protocols, for very explicit defined interventions, so that finally we will have one language in our field. Misuse and misrepresentation or undefined terms in titles and in body of research articles are also misleading the readers. And misuse of terms mean that outcomes are not accurately being reported or applied. When you have outcomes on animal-assisted therapy by a therapist, you cannot compare it with the outcomes of an animal-assisted activity of, for instance, a volunteer. So we need to be very careful in our wording. Correct definitions in animal-assisted interventions are animal-assisted intervention used as an umbrella term. And in the white paper, which is translated in 70 languages, also in Spanish, you can find it very well explained in Spanish, and it is really worth to look at it. This is how it is written down. I won't annoy you with my Spanish, Intervenciones asistidas con animales. You can read it yourself much better and express it express it much better than I can do. But please go to www.iahayo.org and check the white paper completely in Spanish, so that you will learn about the definitions and how we can spread clarity in our field about this. How to guarantee quality? I don't know how it is in your country, but in the Netherlands, we have this situation that there are many people that call themselves animal therapists. And they aren't an animal therapist. They are someone who wants to visit with their dog elderly people, or want to do activities with children and dogs, etc. But they are no therapists that are assisted by an animal. And animal therapy is also, in my opinion, a very difficult word, because it's not the animal that gives the therapy, it are the therapists that are giving therapy. So please always use the word animal assisted instead of animal therapy. You are not taken seriously. In our country, it has been quite a problem to be taken seriously, because people thought that we were that the animals gave the therapy. They aren't. It are the therapists that are giving the therapies assisted by an animal. Anyway, in our country, there were a lot of people that called themselves animal therapists, and patients, clients, vulnerable people went there, but they weren't qualified to do the job. So happily, there are organizations that are pull together standards for educations for practitioners. So nowadays, there is ISA, the International Society of Animal Assisted Therapy, and they have curricula that can be accredited when the content and the content of the course is okay, the quality of the teachers is okay. You can get accredited as a course leader. So it's not for the individuals, it is for the courses that can get accredited. You might know Path International, who composed international standard for certification and accreditation for equine-assisted interventions. You might know IAGALA, who has a global standard for equine-assisted psychotherapy. And in the Netherlands, after, well, let's call 20 years of hard work, we managed to have now a register for animal-assisted interventions, and which is a quality register in which individuals and educational curricula can be accredited following the ESAT and the IAHIO standards, so that public, the community, insurance companies, medical doctors, etc., can find where to send their clients to people who have followed an education not only in their profession, but on top of that also an education on animal-assisted interventions. This is an example of what I told you about from Animal Assisted Intervention International, AAII. They have a document which is about standards and competencies for people who are working in the field, participants, dog handlers, healthcare, therapy providers, and about the animals involved. And so that is just an example of how it can be organized. This is from PATH International, the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship International Standards for Certification and Accreditation. It's all online, and this is, for instance, quality development and quality assurance of animal-assisted interventions by ESAT and by the Institute of Enterozoology in the Netherlands. This is an example of competencies for counseling. It's you can find on the internet, and it is of the Center for Counseling Practice, Policy and Research. And there you can find what is needed, what competencies do people need when they are working in their practice with animals. Ohio has its international guidelines on care, training, and welfare requirements for equines, for instance, but also for the other animals, as I mentioned before, for smaller animals such as dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, etc., and also for farm animals in green care or in animal-assisted intervention programs. And also a very recent code of practice, which is very useful, is the code of practice in the UK from SCAS, the Society of Companion Animal Studies, that have a practical code, and it is very extended and really very nice to read it, and it is also free on the internet to download. So there is a lot going on in our field, which helps us in our fields to get recognized and to get to be sustainable in our field. One of the things that we found out when doing research was that organizations that we were, let's say, founded 10 years ago disappeared in a couple of years. So, and then there came up a lot of new organizations. I don't know how it is in your country, but here it is booming business, but also many people that started an organization with animal-assisted interventions just stop after a couple of years, and it seems not to be a very sustainable job to do, to be working in this field. So we do need to be accredited, and we do need to be educated and to have quality standards to be taken seriously. So what do professionals need, in my opinion? A degree of or a license in your own discipline, of course, and experience in working in your own discipline. You need to be working a couple of years and be skilled in your own profession before you can work in the field of animal-assisted interventions. You should know, for instance, to make sure that it is needed to have an animal assisting you, or you can do it on your own. On top of that, you need to have courses, accredited courses on animal well-being, ethics, animal behavior, animal emotions, animal cognitions, to recognize difficult situations in your therapy sessions. When, for instance, the dog is getting stressed, or when the horse is very upset, or whatever, you You need to know everything about well-being of the animals you are working with, because you need to take that, you need to respect their well-being and their signs. You need to be able to read their signs so that you can take them out of the situation when the animal is not happy anymore with what he has to do. So it is very important that professionals with a degree or a license follow courses in which theory and practice are combined, and they need also to have the personality to carry out the work with the animals and the clients. Not everybody is very well with animals, and of course only those people who love animals will choose for it, but you really need to be skilled and to be caring not only for the humans but also for the animals when you want to work in this job. So what do educational curricula need? Good practical content. Uh, you need to address more than one species to work with. You need to have practice, a lot of practice. You need to go for internships in other organizations with other practitioners. You need skillful teachers. We ask teachers that have an academic degree or well, or an what is it, an University of toegepaste wetenschappen, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't get the word at the moment, but you need to be you need to have teachers that are skillful, but also that are very well educated on some sort of an academic or equal level, let's call it that way. Sufficient hours of study, lectures, workshop, practice, good theoretical content, which is updated regularly, that the teachers should look up the newest science about the animals and the newest science about practice. They should, there should be entry requirements for students. It is not that everybody can be allowed to follow the studies, because you need to be licensed, and or in the case of a volunteer, you need to have sufficient education to understand the cause of, and that is of course is that is necessary. Transparency in what education they offer for who and for what, because there are many diverse not only levels but also fields in our animal assisted intervention field. There you can be, for instance, specialized in elderly, you can be specialized in education, you can be specialized in therapy for post-traumatic stress disorders or whatever, but it needs to be very transparent what the educational pathway offers, so that people can make the right choices. And that is, at least in our country, sometimes a problem, because people want to keep everything for themselves, don't want to share knowledge, don't want to share their books or their curriculae. And I hope that that will change in the future, because we need to work together with each other, all together, to get our field professionalized and to get it sustainable. One of the things that I think is very important to emphasize is that research and practice are interdependent, that we cannot live without each other. Research helps in finding the most effective interventions. However, then we need to use all the same language. We need to be transparent in what we do. We need to be transparent in for what reason we are doing this intervention, in what way we are doing it. And that can be of great help in defining the best practices when researchers are looking into the effects of our work. And practitioners can help researchers to do so while offering them the data of the effects of their clients, and be transparent in about what they are doing and how they are doing it. So the key word is sustainability. And sustainability means safeguarding the well-being of the client, safeguarding the well-being of the professional, of the animal, and all are equally important. We need to be guided in ethical and other challenges in practice, and we need to pull up ethical standards. And in our work, we are working together with the Ministry of Agriculture to develop guidelines for ethical use or working with the animals in animal-assisted interventions. And of course, there are other challenges. There are many challenges when it is about ethics. Who is more important, the well-being of the client or the well-being of the animal involved? Should we go on, and even if the dog is not feeling well or whatever? So there need to be guidelines to help us to do the right things. We need to have standardized research projects and the possibility to replicate studies so that we can build up a huge data, and we can use those data all over the world just to compare things and to get insight in what is the most effective way of doing the work. We need to evaluate for that step by step the effects of the intervention. And of course, it's difficult because we need also to tailor-make the intervention for every client. So we need to professionalize the AAI field and make it transparent by quality standards and by accreditation of all those who are working in it. Practitioners need to be accredited so that they can be recognized by the government in their country. They need to be recognized in this specialism. The educational curricula should be independently evaluated, and they shouldn't accredit themselves. They should be accredited by an independent other body. They should fulfill quality criteria, which are determined by the field together with experts. And they should follow the scientific insights, the latest scientific insights. Also, it is very important that professionals are united in a branch organization that has defined professional and ethical rules and watch over those rules and watch over those professionals, and is also the spokesperson to other, to for instance, a government for that branch, for all those people in that branch association. The professionals will be in professional organizations, for instance, of psychologists, of speech therapists, of physiotherapists, etc., but need also to be reunited in a branch organization for professionals working in the field of animal-assisted interventions. Legislation or legal regulation should be defined for the well-being of the animals involved. And accreditation as professional makes remuneration by healthcare organization and insurance companies feasible. If we are not accredited and everybody can do the job, not accredited, then it is not very, it doesn't mean anything. We need to be able to prove that we are accredited, that we have quality, and that we are very well educated to do the job. The first steps in the Netherlands I want to share with you was organizing the field in a bottom-up process. We wanted everybody to work together, and there were a lot of difficulties. There was a lot of diversity in, for instance, the education of the people working in the field, but we convinced them that working together would make the field stronger. And it took, well, about 20 years, but we are now, we are united, and we are helping the field to be educated on several levels, and we are working together with our research institutes to make AAI sustainable and to show or to prove that it works. We have a chair at the Open University, and also a chair, a lectorate at the University for Applied Sciences, which is very useful for making progress in research. And for instance, I have more than 10 PhDs working in the field and doing their research in the field, and several will defend their thesis still this year. And we are very happy that we make so much progress also in being accepted by government, because of having a university that has a chair in this field. And we have in the Netherlands the quality register, the AAI quality register for the workers and the education, and which makes the field very transparent for all those people who wants to have animal-assisted therapy or animal-assisted psychotherapy or occupational therapy or whatever. They can find in that register who is working where, with what qualifications, and with all the information that is needed. Also, people that want to be educated can find the educational programs that are accredited and are in the quality register. So that were the first steps in our country that are very helpful in developing the field. It's very necessary to work together with the government, with the Ministry of Healthcare, the Ministry of Agriculture for the regulation and safeguarding of the animal well-being, but with the Ministry of Healthcare to regulate the quality standards for the professionals. Collaboration is necessary with insurance companies, but also with institutional settings, with hospitals, nursing homes, schools, prisons, etc. We need to get animal-assisted therapy embedded in their treatment plans. And with the professional organizations, we need to get the professionalism of animal-assisted interventions recognized and remunerated. For instance, in being a clinical psychologist, in my professional organization, there is no such group of psychologists that are working with animal-assisted interventions or working with animal-assisted therapy. There are many of them. However, they are not organized or have a home in their own professional organization. And that should happen as well. Well, I want to finish with telling you again that the animal is not a therapist. The volunteer, the handler, and or the professional are doing their job with the assistance of an animal. And also, I want to tell you that animal-assisted interventions or therapy does not fit everybody, is not a panacea. And animal well-being is never to be overlooked. And now I want to thank you for your attention. And I'm there to, if you have questions that you want to pose me, I'm very happy to answer them. Sorry for my English sometimes that I couldn't find a word, but it is really very weird to talk to a screen and to not to have a public that you can have contact with. That's really difficult. So thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully until a time that we can meet in person. Bye-bye.